Hello, ladies. Welcome to the virtual summit, and thank you for joining me today. I feel it is an honor and a privilege to speak to you today. There are so many things that are trying to tear us down in the world that we need to fortify ourselves on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis. This is especially true for women. We have so many responsibilities and things that are required of us that we need to seek out the best ways to fortify ourselves. You are an amazing woman because you have found yourself here today. And you know that in today's world, you need to win your battles and be fortified. In order to survive, you have to have the growth and the desire. You require fortification. I am here today to give you some insights on ways to begin to fortify your marriage. These principles have been taught to thousands and thousands of couples and have worked. But you have to be willing to put forth the required efforts in order to fortify yourself and your partner. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you are free of distractions so that you are ready to learn and that you have printed out my blueprint. If not, please hit pause and I will wait. Okay, are you ready? All right, so I want to talk to you today about commitments. If you have your blueprint, you can see that's the first thing we're going to talk about. And commitments are sometimes a hard thing to work on. You can say that you're committed, but what are you actually committed to? Think about your marriage and ask yourself these questions. Are you willing to invest time and resources, maybe even some sweat and tears to make it better? Are you willing? Think about that. But really, how committed are you to really fortifying that important commitment? And think about what would you pay or go through in order to ensure that your marriage would be a success and that your spouse and you could make things last forever. Well, those are important things to consider when fortifying a marriage. I wasn't always willing to do those things, and because of it, my marriage suffered. Until I got real with myself and knew what I needed to do, I knew I needed to do the work. Anything of value in my life needed an investment of my time, my energy, and my resources. And when I was committed to making those investments, I began to see results. So we know that this takes commitment. There are 3 commitments that I feel are most important in fortifying your marriage, and I want to share that with you today. But first, I want you to think about something that you did in your life that was really, really hard. Something you were super committed to do. You worked so hard for it, and it was something that made you feel super accomplished. Maybe it was something that you accomplished, it took a lot of hard work, and maybe it really wore you down. And when you finally did it, you knew that you had done something amazing. It was something that totally mattered to you. And it was something that was bigger in life. So what I'd like you to do is, will you take a minute and write that something down? Write about the experience that you had. Something that you had to stay committed to and got results. You can write it down on back of one of the pages. And if you can't think of something, some ideas that come to my mind are things like a college graduation, maybe running a marathon, putting on a big event, speaking in public, having kids. All of those are really great commitments. So I want you to pause the video and take a moment to think about that big accomplishment that made you feel that way and write it down. So here's where you can pause the video. Okay, so we are back. So how was that? Did you struggle to find something to write about? Did you notice the feelings that came up as you wrote? What did all of that work do for you? What did it create? Did you feel a sense of accomplishment? Maybe you felt pride. Maybe you felt hope. Did you feel motivation or confidence? Did all of that work create those types of feelings? Yes, of course it did, right? You put a lot of time and energy into whatever great task you accomplished. And you got all of those wonderful feelings from sticking to a commitment and accomplishing it. And look at what you did. You have got this. So I want you to think about that in your relationship, right? Because when you're making commitments to your relationship, it's just like that. And that if you're able to put forth the effort like you did on that great task that you did, you will be able to see the results. So relationships are a very dynamic thing. They're not static. Every day your relationship changes a little bit from day to day. In every relationship, not just in your marriage. And there's a great quote that says, "You never step into the same river twice." So it may look the same, but when you cross it, it's never the same spot. It's constantly moving and constantly changing. This is the same with your marriage. It is constantly changing. And the only thing that may stay the same is the way that you think about your marriage. So your first commitment, if you look on the sheet, says to keep building. And so I want you to make a commitment to keep building, keep working on it. You've got to try and build it. Some people just give up when it gets too hard and they stop working on it. You have to know that you are still climbing the mountain. Excuse me. Keep climbing. The only way to get over that mountain is to just keep walking, one foot in front of the other, one step after step. And I don't want you to climb the mountain blindly. We're not going to send you up there blindly and hope that you figure out how to climb the mountain. I don't want you to get lost in the desert either. But I want you to keep walking and to make that commitment and to keep building hope and keep building your companionship. And if you're not committed to the 3 C's, which I call character, communication, and companionship, then guess what? Hope is not going to sway you, and it's not going to work. You'll have no hope, and you'll give up, and you'll want to abandon the relationship that you're in. But that's not how we fortify, ladies, right? So the first step is to keep building. The second step is to keep learning. And we have to learn from the problems that we've had and the experiences that we've been through. But if you keep having the same problem over and over again, it's a learning problem, ladies. It means that you haven't learned the lesson yet. It's definitely a learning issue. And I love this quote by Albert Einstein, and he says, "You cannot attempt to solve a problem that you created at the same level of thinking you were at when you created it." That means if I put a pen behind my ear and leave it and I can't find it, what's my problem? I can't see the pen, it's in there, but I can't see it. I am actually part of the problem. You can see the pen, but I can't see it. So I have to find a way to look at things differently. I can always blame, right? I can say, who took my pen? Where's my pen? I don't see it anywhere. I can do that, but then I'm not taking ownership of my part of the problem. And so you'll need to start learning instead of creating problems. How many of you really want to learn? I'm sure that you want to because you're here today. How many of you have actually asked your partner, honey, what can I do better? We really don't want to do that. And why? Because most of us will say, I don't have the time, or maybe I don't want to know the answer. But we need to make learning intentional, especially with our partners. And we need to transcend to that higher level of learning and thinking. So that second commitment that we are making is we are making the commitment to keep learning. Once we've learned, the next commitment that we need to make is to changing. And so what can I do if I'm constantly putting pens behind my ear and can't find them? The first thing I have to do is to be aware that I have that habit of putting the pen behind my ear. And then I have to do something different. It's great if you learn something, but if you don't change, it's as if you really didn't learn anything at all. So that's where the problem lies, is that we can learn all we want, but we actually need to change. And this may require that you alter your routine. So maybe if I'm using my pen, then I can put it down and say, okay, when I'm done using my pen, I'm actually going to put it down in front of me. Or maybe I'll put it right by my phone, right? Because we all know where our phones are. But I have to do something consciously different in my mind in order to create different patterns. And so a huge key in success in changing is awareness, is your awareness. So you have to ask yourself, what is possible? We're always asking ourselves that question in the Women's Empire. And with that, we're able to come up with some different solutions. There are so many different things that you can do. You can ask your partner regularly for feedback. Like I said, maybe you don't want to go there, but you need to in order to change the trajectory that you are currently on. So if you're here and you want to be here, you have to figure out, how am I going to get there? Well, the best person that's going to know how to do that is going to be your partner, right? And so instead of your trajectory maybe staying flat, or sadly maybe even going down, you want that trajectory to be up, right? And then you need to be able to check in regularly with one another, right? This is also why we have coaches. You have to have someone outside of your home that is holding you accountable so that you actually make those needed changes. So those are the 3 commitments that we get to have in order to create those better relationships. So then the next thing that we look at are what I call the 4 lights. Have you ever walked into a dark room and all you needed was just one light to help you see your way? I know when I come home and all the lights are off in my house, I can't see anything. So the first thing I do is turn on that first light, right? Then I can see, oh, there's my kitchen, and I can see into my front room. But can I see into the hallway? No. Can I see into my bedroom? No. Can I see into my bathroom? Definitely not, right? So at least one light on helps me. And that first light is self-awareness. And we need it to turn on that light so that we don't live in a dark marriage. How many of you are living in a dark marriage? I hope not a lot of you, but I know some of you are. And it's a sad place to be in. I know how that feels. But you need to be able to turn on a light, at least one light, in order to lift your marriage. But if you turn on all 4 lights I'm going to talk to you about, it will start to help you have a clue of what you need to do. So like I said, that first light is self-awareness. And this is where we get to become very clear on where we are in the marriage. Ask yourself, where am I in this marriage right now? Are you clear about what you need? Are you clear about what your spouse needs? Are you clear about what you need to do to change? If you want to make changes, then that needs to become clear. And you need to ask yourself this question: what part of the problem am I? And this is a higher brain question. Instead of being accusatory and putting the blame on our partner, we get to take ownership of that and say, what part of the problem am I? Then in that way, I'm becoming self-aware. And I need you to go there, ladies. I need you to go there and ask that question so you can turn that light on. It's the first light. And you only need to turn one light on, right, in order to make that difference. Just like me walking into my home, if I turn on that one light, I can see so much in my house. So that's the first space to go to. And there are other things that can help fortify your marriage, but you've got to ask your partner. And once that one light is on, it is easier to find the other lights that are there. So just like in your house. So the second light is empathy. That's the next light to turn on. And basically, this is like other awareness. So what does my partner need? You need to be clear on what your spouse's needs are. So now that you have 2 lights on and you're clear on what part of the problem you are, you can know also what your spouse needs in order to make this work. Can you get to compassion for your spouse? That's sometimes a hard thing. First, you have to have the knowledge and know that you have a motivating factor to get to that compassion. Because when we have compassion for people, we have that empathy, we are able to connect with them in a deeper way. And I want you to be able to do that with your partner. And in that regard, you will have the 2 lights on and you can see so much more, and things will become so much clearer if you can have that and practice compassion with your partner. The third light is the light of imagination. And every single one of us have an imagination, so we can create better solutions. If you do not have an imagination, then you cannot imagine your future or your great potential. You may have a story with limiting beliefs. That's not serving you, ladies. You need to look at that. Maybe perhaps your parents' marriage didn't work, and so you think, well, it's broken, and I can't do it either. I haven't seen it modeled. I don't know what that looks like. And so you fall into those same stories. I want you to change that. I want you to imagine what are the possibilities. When we turn on that imagination light, it can mean so many things. But we have to create the story that our marriage will work and be as successful as we imagine it to be. Now with 3 lights on, I can walk all the way into my bedroom, right? If I'm turning on those lights in my house, I've got that first light on, I can see into my kitchen and my front room, I can see partially into my hallway, and I can see into my bedroom. So I'm almost there, ladies, almost there. 4th light is our conscience. And this is the last light. And this is the light that tells us what we should be doing based on our own value system. This is what's right and wrong. This is how we make those determinations, is our conscience. Were you ever prompted to do something different in an argument? My guess is probably yes. Maybe you should have stopped, maybe taken a time out, but you chose to ignore that prompting. And why? Maybe you were mad, and so you just couldn't stop. But our conscience gives us the ability to suspend in that moment and ask ourselves this question. What is my heart telling me that I should do in this specific situation? Listen to what your conscience is telling you, because you know. It will tell you what is right and what is wrong. If you say something rude or condescending to your partner, you'll know it in your gut. And sometimes we say that because we end up in the lower brain, but we need to ask ourselves those higher brain questions. What part of the problem am I? How can I get to compassion for my partner? How can I have empathy for them? What am I going to imagine? How can I create the marriage that I want? Your conscience will be able to tell you those things. And all 4 of those lights are these higher brain activities. We have to take that high road and turn on those lights so that we can fortify our commitments to our spouse and to our marriage. So these 4 lights will help us get to our sense of self, right? That's the first one. Then we'll have the sense of other, our partner. We have the sense of seeing our potential. And then we have the sense of seeing all of the lights, right? This helps us to determine what is right and wrong. And there are many couples who don't use any lights. They would rather navigate their marriage in the dark, bumping into things in the night, and not looking for any of those solutions. But what I find is when they start to turn on a light, they can start to see more clear. Just as you turn on a light in a dark room, you start to see. And maybe when you turn on that light, you can see a bunch of books. And maybe you think reading a book might change your marriage. Or maybe going to a class will help change and fortify your marriage. Or even having someone like myself be your coach. Maybe all of those things. But the key in all of that is that nothing will change until you start to do something. We can read and learn all we want, but until we're ready to change and make that commitment and turn on those lights, we're not going to see a change. We actually have to do something. So, the other thing about turning on lights in that room is you might turn on the lights and realize that there are other people in the room. There are other people who are missing. And because you've had no self-awareness and no empathy and no imagination or conscious, you're missing people. They might be family members. They might be friends. You know, maybe you realize that you have a child that needs you and you didn't know because you weren't paying attention. And so this tool works in all of the relationships that you have. You can turn on those lights and see, what are you missing? How can you find self-awareness and empathy and imagination and listening to your conscience? And the core part of all of this is that you are changing, right? We can learn all we want, but if we don't change, it's not going to make a difference. And so we need to change. And if we're not changing, we cannot fortify ourselves. And today we're here to talk about how to fortify our marriage. So what you do today may be different than what you need to do tomorrow in order to fortify your marriage. So be aware of that. It's constantly changing. And so we need to change with that. So think about maybe what is one of your pain points? What are you struggling with right now? And it doesn't have to be with your marriage, it can be with anything. But think about a challenge that you are having, that you're struggling with. I want you to use the 4 lights and see if you can shed some light on an issue that you're dealing with right now. Every time, these lights will tell you what to do. And your actions, so if we look at this in levels, right? So they'll tell you what to do. And if your actions are here and the space where you want to be is here, the space in between is called pain, because this is where you're at and this is where you want to be at. And the principle here is that light will always precede action, and you have to keep growing with that light that you are receiving. And then you can shrink that gap, right? And so we want to be out of that pain. And in order to do that, you have to take action. So I hope that makes sense as I explain that. So what action are we going to take, ladies? Well, it's the last thing that I want to talk to you about today in order to fortify your marriage, and it's having a weekly couples meeting. I want you to take action on a weekly basis with your spouse. So how will a weekly couples meeting fortify your marriage? Well, I will tell you. So after couples go through my Feeding the Marriage workshop, I work with them on a weekly basis, and I help them fill out that sheet that you have on the blueprint. And on this form, it helps them so that they are learning how to do this. And then once I finish teaching them how to do that, then they can continue to do that on their own week after week in order to fortify their marriage. So pull that out on your blueprint. Like I said, it's called Weekly Couples Meeting, and I will tell you how it works. So the first part of this couples meeting is you need to say that you are in. And when you begin your meeting by saying, I'm in, this lets your spouse know that you are truly ready to work on fortifying your marriage. The next section is where you get to rate your marriage. You get to rate how the past week went based on a scale of 1 to 10. And since you're just starting out, you can just do that from whatever you think. Just currently, how do I feel my marriage is? How does my spouse feel our marriage is? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. You can also ask, how loved are you feeling by your spouse this week? You can also rate that. These powerful questions help you to understand and allow you both to grow and build that stronger marriage that you desire. The next section on the sheet is where you rate commitments that you have made the previous week. And since you are just starting out, you can just leave that space blank on your first meeting. And then, of course, next week when you do this, then you'll be able to fill out that section. After that, you ask one another what is working. And I want you to take some time to really think about what is working in our marriage this week. I want you to focus on those positive things first. And then ask yourself what needs improvement. And in the workshop that I teach you how to get real with one another. So that you can have those conversations in a healthy way. Because sometimes when we look at what needs improvement, this is where we can have some pain points, and maybe we end up in some arguments or disagreements that we don't resolve our problems in a healthy way. So through the workshop, I teach couples how to be able to have those conversations without yelling or crying or screaming or playing the blame game. Or the silent treatment. That's another good one, right? So, but we want to do this in a healthy way, because in order for us to make improvements, we have to know what part of the problem that we are and have our spouse ask the same thing, and then be able to make that commitment to change. So that's the next section, as it asks, what aspect of your relationship do you want to work on? And then you choose a topic that you need to address. Or you can ask, what does our family require this week? as you're working on that together. It's also an opportunity for you to look at the coming weeks and schedule and see what your week looks like. So, are you on a week that's going to be really busy most nights of the week? How are you going to get together and do dinner? Well, maybe that means that you're going to have some crock pot meals. Well, that's going to require some planning. The other thing during the week is that I want you to make sure that you are scheduling a weekly date night. That needs to be scheduled every single week, and that should be a non-negotiable item between you and your spouse, especially if you are wanting to fortify your marriage. So, the next section on the form you can see is where we bring in those 4 lights. Ask yourself the important questions so that you can get to the heart of the issues that you want to accomplish. So that first question in self-awareness, what part of the problem or solution am I? Next, you would ask, what are my partner's needs and wants? And if you look at the form, there's like 2 sides. I guess I should have said that from the beginning, but there are 2 sides. And so you write your name at the top of each one so that you know who is writing what under each person. Because they're going to be different, right? What part of the problem am I is going to be different than what part of the problem my spouse is. So we just need to have that written down on the form. The third light is imagination. So what is possible with our shared goals and desires? This is where you have that imagination, right? To create whatever you would like. And then the last thing is your conscience. And that question is, what is the most important thing I can do this week to have the greatest impact? This is where you set a goal and make that commitment to work on it for the coming week. And this weekly couples planning meeting will work with all types of marriages. It works with those that are succeeding, and it works with those that may need some work. So I challenge you that no matter where you are at in your relationship, to utilize this tool. So today, I hope I've shared a few things that will help you build your marriage up and to fortify it. By making the commitments to build, to learn, and to change, you will create something amazing. And this is what will be required as things become more difficult in our world. You will want to protect and fortify your marriage by using powerful tools. If what I have shared today with you resonates with you, please click on the Learn More button and reach out to me. I want to provide you with all the tools that I have in order for you to create your best marriage. I want you to have a marriage that is strong and fortified against the negative forces that are in the world right now. On my blueprint, I have 3 ways that you can connect with me. First, I have my 12-hour workshop that provides you with all of the needed tools, a weekly game plan, along with accountability, which is always important, right? We have weekly homework assignments, and some of these assignments are very fun and give you an opportunity to maybe get to know your spouse better, maybe to have some cuddle time, maybe some intimate time. They're just some fun and different assignments to help you create that better marriage and that fortification that you want. Many couples after the workshop decide that they want to continue with me and do weekly couples meetings, at least for a couple weeks, to help get them set on how to create that weekly form and do it in a way that will help fortify their marriage and send them on a path to success. And so you will receive a nice discount off of that workshop. So please contact me for more information about that. The second thing is that in my company, we provide fun and entertaining, yet informative date nights. And the 2 that we've done so far this year have been a blast. The first one was called Smokin' Hot Date Night. And the last one that we had was called Game Night, Date Night. Are you feeling lucky? So we kind of make them a lot of fun. And of course, there's food. We always have to have food so that people will come. But you will also receive a discount on that next date night. And lastly, I am providing you with a free relationship assessment and consultation. And this is available online, and the link is on your blueprint. So if you have that link on your sheet, you just click on that and it will take you right to the survey, and you can take that assessment. then I will gather those results and then I'll put them in a letter and that will be emailed out to you. And once you receive your results, we can schedule a time to meet together for a free consultation to further explain your results and answer any questions that you may have. So, ladies, I wanted to thank you for staying with me to the end. I hope with your commitments to build, to learn, and to change, you will have a marriage that is fortified and rock solid. I want to leave you with one quote from Gandhi, and he said, "You must become the change you want to see in the world." And I totally believe that, ladies. If you want things to be different, you need to start with that. You need to be the change. And I just want to let you ladies know that I love you, I appreciate you, and I'm so glad that you were able to join with me today. And I pray that you will continue to fortify not only your marriage, but your family and all your relationships. Thank you, ladies.